This is not part of a conspiracy or anything that the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the JPL, that runs the spacecraft for NASA can be faulted on in the sense of engaging in any kind of cover-up, because they have placed on their website the original raw data for the spacecraft and this image and the exact recipe used to get from one to the other. They don't say why they did this, but they do explain exactly how it was done. And the answer is that from the raw spacecraft data to get here, we pass the raw image through a high-pass filter, then pass it separately through a low-pass filter, and then average those two images. Well, each filter takes out quite a bit of detail, and then when you average them, that smooths it out even more. And when they released this image, it was accompanied by a lot of verbiage to the effect of, obviously this is a pile of rocks, and it's really a joke that anyone would take this seriously, which is not very scientific. Here from Adobe Photoshop is the exact definition of a high-pass filter to give you an idea of what they were doing when they did this. Retains edge details where sharp color transitions occur and suppresses the rest of the image. The filter removes low-frequency detail in an image, useful for extracting line art and large black and white areas from scanned images. What business do they have applying that filter to this object? I think that the answer is they didn't really have any legitimate business doing that, but as nearly as I've been able to piece together the story from colleagues and from my knowledge of the way it works inside JPL. I spent 3 months there a couple of decades ago as a consultant. The image was shipped up to the JPL image processing lab, which probably put it through every image processing trick they knew, including every filter they knew, just to see how things looked and what detail it could bring out. Then along came the JPL Public Information Office, which had the mission, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, they probably thought they were doing the right thing because, to quote the astronomer in charge of the spacecraft imagery, Michael Malin, and this is his message to the astronomers when he presented this image, he said that his team and he personally resented being ordered to take the image because it was a slap at the integrity of the scientists involved and a waste of public funds. That was their viewpoint going in before the image was taken, and they were resentful of it. And I think that thinking they were doing the right thing by putting this down so that the public didn't get the wrong idea that there might be something here worth pursuing, the Public Information Office came in, looked over the images, and said, we see the one we want that'll give the right impression. This will kill the story. And, of course, they released that, and it did kill the story. I think it was not for conspiratorial reasons, but out of a belief they were doing the right thing. But God save us from people who think they're doing the right thing for us. The astronomers' conclusions regarding the face, and I'll own up to these for myself, because although some of the members of the independent scientists, the SPSR group, sign on with these, some are not as convinced as these results would indicate. But when we combine the odds against all those a priori predictions, the natural origin hypothesis is disproved at odds of 1,000 billion to 1. Now that's a formal number, but it's an indication of the strength of the a priori hypothesis, which, by the way, is ordinarily used to rule out hypotheses. And you can believe it was a shock to all of us when, in this case, it was the natural origin hypothesis that got ruled out. Now that still leaves some other possibilities besides artificiality on Mars. One of which is that it was some reverse conspiracy at JPL, or as some would have it these days, that the whole space program is a fake. But ruling out all hypotheses which have long odds against them, the artificiality of Cydonia would seem to be the most reasonable interpretation of what we have here. And I've said, speaking for myself, beyond a reasonable doubt.
The chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1, he said. The chances of anything coming from Mars are 1,000,000 to 1, but still they come.
Seemed an appropriate musical selection for that point. I also like this quote from Stephen Goldberg: "The consequences of a claim that something is true are entirely irrelevant to the issue of whether the claim is true." In our next section here, first let me do the title slide. I call this section Special Shapes. Let me back up. This is the only image that is not of Mars in this presentation. Back in the days of the lunar orbiter in the late 60s and early 70s, an image was taken that showed this Euclid crater. It was a low-resolution image, but it was curious because it's a crater very near the center of the side of the moon that continually faces Earth, and it seemed to have a triangular interior, leading to speculation that this is where the UFO base was and they were monitoring the Earth from there. But later, when the Clementine spacecraft went by and took a high-resolution view, we saw that the sides were really not particularly linear, that the apexes were not particularly angular, and that this could be understood too as just pressure waves from nearby impacts pushing in the sides and forming a very crudely triangular shape in the interior. Crude is the operative word here, yet this is the best closed triangle anywhere in the solar system, Earth and Mars accepted. By contrast, on Mars we have hundreds of triangles much better than Euclid. Here is one that I'm showing you, just a sample of many of its class. Curiously, a regular feature is that there's a crater at one apex of these triangles. Here's a raised triangle. Very odd to have a plateau in the shape of a triangle. Here's a curious set of embedded triangles, an inner set, another set. I'm sure you can still make out this one. A little too dim for this reproduction system. There are two more levels of triangles, all with a common apex, 6 embedded triangles in all that we've been able to trace, and a crater again at the apex of this triangle. Not only triangular shapes, but pyramid shapes too, 4 and 5-sided. This is the DMM pyramid in the medium resolution Viking images. Remarkably triangular faces on this fellow, and subsequently we're able to bring out some detail in the shadowed side. This is an Odyssey image showing this odd feature over here, and in high resolution the global surveyor showed what almost looks temptingly to say looks like an entranceway on the back side of that pyramid. Never mind the association, which is much too speculative, this object is certainly one we'll want to have a close-up look at when we have ground truth capability. This is, looking at the image on the left here for a moment, this is a wide field, low-resolution view of an area of Mars that has some curious angular-looking features all lined up in an L shape. Rather regular, non-random distribution. This white box here is an outline of where the Mars Global Surveyor came by and took a high-resolution view. Even though there are 100,000 of these high-resolution strip images just like this one, Mars is a big place, and we've only photographed 1/10 of 1% of the surface of Mars at high resolution. Notice that this high-resolution image just goes over part of one of these blocks, whatever they are. And here it is here in the high-resolution view. This is just that block part of that image. It looks rather pyramidal with nice angular, triangular faces. Well, I don't have to tell you that if you randomly select, and it was randomly selected, one object out of a field of objects that look rather angular, and it turns out to be a nice pyramid, what are we to make of the others? We'll be anxious to see someday. But as the title there suggests, it may be quite an interesting field of objects. And if there are small enclosures in them with manuscripts, as Alan Alford suggests, wouldn't we like to read those? Here are some interesting craters. Unusual because they're relatively high, sharply flat-bottomed with high rims and flat tops to the rims, and a very unusual raised feature, teardrop shaped feature in the interior. There is probably no other feature quite like this anywhere in the solar system, except another crater about 10 kilometers away, shown in the inset down here, which has an almost identical raised feature, and it's its virtual twin. Look how flat top that crater is, and how steep, the division between the base, the flat floor, which you can tell is flat by the uniformness of the gray, and the steep walls. Spacecraft is viewing this at a slight angle. You could go skateboarding around the top of that crater. It's so flat. And the identity of these objects is remarkable. Here's some very other unusual shapes. We'd love to know what this object is. The size of the crater itself is about 1 kilometer across. This is hundreds of meters in diameter, bigger than this auditorium. So it's not a golf ball that got stuck in the pit. This looks like a shatter pattern, the kind you usually only get in crystals, ice or glass. What's it doing on Mars in an area where there's no ice clearly present? Very unusual shape here, rectangular, circular center, arrow-shaped tip. And look at the shadow it casts, stair-step shape. Here's a group of odd white stripes in a caterpillar shape. Very unusual features that seem worthy of note. This can be seen either as channels or as raised. The correct interpretation is channels because the sunlight is coming from this direction. If you work on it, if you're getting the opposite view, if you work on it, it's possible to flip them. If not, you just need to invert the image and you'll get the opposite view. A lot of these images have raised or depth ambiguities, and you have to know where the sun is to resolve that. But if that's a water-carved channel, the water-carved things don't ordinarily end in T's, do they? And this one over here, again, look how steep the walls are, how flat the bottom is. Craters are made by explosions, not by excavations. So ordinarily, the smooth bottom goes up to the rim, and you expect to see material on the outside. And you can't get a crater this elliptical by impact, even a grazing impact, because of the same reason the crater is made by explosion, not excavation. And so you can get a slight ellipticity from a grazing impact because of the momentum of the explosion, but not something that elongated. So what formed it? So switching then to another category of images. This is called spots, tracks, and vegetation. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to repeat that. Here is an area, let me just, this is a low